Another thing the majority support very strongly is they do not want legislation from the bench. They want our justices, especially in the Supreme Court, to go in there and make impartial judgments based on the law and the Constitution. Now, the thing is, if the left or the right get their way and they get some good legislation from the bench that fits their mindset, they'll think, this is good. Yet, we can think that if we're on the left or the right, but then when the decision goes the other way, well, then we won't like it at all. So why don't we just go down the middle and have the law based on not legislating opinion, not having the judges judge from their opinion, but judging by what is written in the actual law, and going by precedent, and going by what fits within the framework, especially of our Constitution. The majority certainly support this type of thing. Another thing that really irks the majority of the people is Congress keeps passing laws and then they don't enforce them. They'll pass laws, say, they'll pass laws on ethics, and they'll think, if they're in the majority, well, this is really going to put it to the other party. And then when the polarity of power shifts, then the laws that they pass come to bite them and get them in trouble, then they'll decide they don't want the law enforced at all. And so oftentimes in Congress, they'll pass quite strict laws, and then when it comes back to bite them, they don't want them enforced. So we shouldn't pass any laws that we're not going to enforce, and if we do pass a law, we should enforce it. And whenever there's a problem of some kind, like with immigration, for instance, they say, well, we need to pass more laws. But we've already got hundreds or perhaps thousands of laws governing this, and we have plenty of laws. We have plenty of laws governing campaign finances. We have untold laws governing just about any area of life we can think of, and we very rarely need more laws, yet when there's a problem, what Congress wants to do, they'll say, we need more laws. Well, what we need to do is we need to take the laws that we have and enforce them. And if we're not going to enforce them, we need to repeal them. Jesse Ventura had a good idea a while back. He had the idea that 1 year out of 3, the legislature ought to get together and concentrate not on making laws, but on going through all the laws and figuring out which ones are useless or bad for us and repeal them. And I thought that was an excellent idea. Because every time we get a law on the books, we just seem to keep it there. We still have laws on the books relating that you can't spit on the sidewalk, or you can't kiss in public for longer than 15 seconds, or cars can't travel more than 10 miles per hour on the street. Different weird laws like this. There's a lot of laws that just never get repealed. The legislature needs to go through the various laws and figure out which ones we can just eliminate and then eliminate them. So the trouble is the majority wants good laws, and then when they're passed, to have them enforced. Something the majority really wants, almost above everything else, is free speech. The First Amendment is supported probably more than any other thing in our Constitution by the majority of the people, that the right to free speech should not be infringed. Yet, it is threatened every day. One of the threats just comes from political correctness. I mean, once something is established as being politically correct, then it seems like it becomes almost dangerous to speak. So it's important that the right to free speech should not be infringed. Now, there's a statement made by the recent Supreme Court nominee, Elena Kagan, where she said this. And what her words here kind of reflect the attitude of a lot of not only justices but politicians, and it's kind of frightening that this type of thinking is so prevalent. And here's what she said. Whether a given category of speech enjoys First Amendment protection depends upon a categorical balancing of the value of speech against its societal costs. Okay, so in other words, whether or not you have the right to free speech depends on if your free speech, is a strain on society of some kind. So if your free speech, she says, is some type of cost to society or strain on the system, then it shouldn't be free anymore. Well, this is pretty frightening. I hope not too many people think this way, but it seems like a lot do. And the trouble with this type of thinking is we may think, well, if we can shut this other guy up that I don't like, that'd be great. But the trouble is, we may be happy that the other guy have his free speech infringed upon, but then sooner or later it'll come around to us. When our free speech is infringed upon, then it's a horse of a different color. Then all of a sudden we're not too happy with that. The bottom line is free speech should not be infringed, period, just like it says in the Constitution. This is extremely important, and this is a point that the majority will support above anything else. But unfortunately, there are people in our government that think free speech needs to be infringed. In other words, there's speech out there that we don't like, so it needs to be curtailed. And the beauty of the First Amendment is it gives somebody that's obnoxious as a Dickens the right to say whatever he wants to say. Now, of course, if a person says something inflammatory enough, he can be sued in a court of law. That's fine. But there should be no law infringing the right to free speech. Now, we're going to continue this next time, and so we're going to talk about the actual plan as to how to implement this idea. So we'll see you next week.